Thousands of kids have been waiting over a year, and their wait. Sponsor a child with compassion today. Text the word radio to 83393.
Is this the time?
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
Congratulations to the USC women's basketball team. USC is one of 4 number 1 seeds in the NCAA women's tournament. The Trojans, number 1 in Region 3, are a top seed for the first time since 1986. Their first round matchup is Friday at home against Texas A&M Corpus Christi. UCLA's women's team is the number 2 seed in Region 2. The Bruins open up at home Friday against California Baptist. 2 HBCU schools are in the women's tournament: MEAC champion Norfolk State and SWAC champion Jackson State. Norfolk State plays Stanford. Jackson State takes on UConn. There are also 2 HBCU schools in the NCAA men's tournament. MEAC champion Howard will play Wagner in a play-in game Tuesday in Dayton, Ohio. Grambling is in the NCAA tournament for the first time in school history. The SWAC champs face Montana State on Wednesday. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA Talk 1580 is the fastest growing talk radio station in Southern California. Home to 50,000 watts and an audience reach of 12 million listeners. KBLA Talk 1580 is a pioneer for Black audio content, including our groundbreaking $2 million climate justice campaign and the most loyal, influential audience. According to an independent research study by the polling firm Aviterus, for the second consecutive year, KBLA Talk 1580 is the most trustworthy, reliable, and credible news source for Black audiences and beyond in Southern California. Let KBLA Talk 1580 power your advertising dollars. Our omni-channel custom marketing solutions are specifically tailored to connect with your ideal target audience. We leverage audio, podcasts, streaming, digital, social media, and local activations to get your message out to the Black community. Get in touch with our advertising team today at advertising@KBLA1580.com. That's advertising@KBLA1580.com. KBLA 1580. We've got you Black.
Live from historic Leimert Park in Los Angeles, California, I'm Tavis Smiley, and I'm so glad to see you and me back in stride again. Before we get started with today's show, let me invite you to follow me on Facebook and Instagram at The Real Tavis Smiley and get updates on X, that's formerly Twitter, at Tavis Smiley. By the way, should you miss any part of today's program or want to catch up on previous shows, you can always visit TheTavisSmileyShow.com. That's TheTavisSmileyShow.com or wherever you get your podcast and listen to the Tavis Smiley podcast version of this live program at your leisure. Another great show on tap for you today. In our second hour, the legendary Catholic priest leading the faith community of St. Sabina, Father Michael Pfleger, joins us live from the south side of Chicago, where he and others want to cancel this summer's Democratic National Convention if the federal government does not pledge more money for the unhoused. He also recently called on local and state government in Illinois to not fast-track work permits, that is, for migrants, concerned that black workers making $15 or $16 an hour will be fired and replaced by a new $5 an hour slave labor. And Father Pfleger wouldn't be Father Pfleger if he wasn't in trouble with the Archdiocese once again. The Cardinal has refused to apologize for making St. Sabina and Father Pfleger canceled Dr. Cornel West as a Black History Month speaker, something Dr. West has done annually for the past 25 years. So should be a rich hour with Father Michael Flager today in hour 2. In our third hour, the legacy of Cheryl White, the first Black female jockey. This is Women's History Month. And the book, The Jockey and Her Horse, details how Cheryl broke race and gender barriers back in 1971 when she was just 17 years old. We'll be joined by the book's co-author, Raymond White Jr., and the book's authenticity reader, Aubriana Johnson, in hour 3 to talk about the legacy of the first Black female jockey, Cheryl White. But in this first hour today, award-winning journalist Michael Isikoff and Daniel Kleidman on their hot and timely new text, Find Me the Votes, a hard-charging Georgia prosecutor, a rogue president, and the plot to steal an American election. As you no doubt heard, on Friday, Judge Scott McAfee ruled that Fonnie T. Willis, the Fulton County DA, could continue leading the election interference prosecution of former President Donald Trump and his allies in Georgia, but only if her former romantic partner Nathan J. Wade withdrew from the case. Judge McAfee said their romantic relationship created an, quote, appearance of impropriety, close quote. About 2 hours after Judge McAfee's ruling was announced, indeed, Nathan Wade resigned his post as special prosecutor in that case, which leads me to commence this conversation with asking Michael and Daniel what lottery numbers I should play this week. Talk about precognition and clairvoyance. Good Lord, the timing of this book could not be more propitious. Welcome back, Michael. How are you, sir?
Hey, good to be with you.
Good to have you on. And Daniel, how are you today, sir?
I'm great, Tavis. Thanks for having us on.
It's my great delight to have you both. Looking forward to this conversation. I haven't got on the air good yet, and there's breaking news about Donald Trump. Let me share this right quick, and then we'll commence our conversation about the book and beyond. Breaking news, Trump has been spurned by 30 companies as he seeks a bond in the $454 million judgment. I'm reading now from the New York Times. Donald J. Trump's lawyer said in a court filing today that he faces, quote, insurmountable difficulties, close quote, as he tries to raise enough cash for the civil fraud penalty he faces in New York City. This raises all kinds of questions, it seems to me, about a dire financial crisis that Donald Trump might be facing sooner than later. Any thoughts on that? Breaking news first, Michael Isikoff.
Well, hard to know, but it's going to be really interesting to see how the judge reacts to this. Does he grant Trump some leeway or not and force him to start selling some of his properties? I don't know how this plays out, but it is indication while things seem to go well for Donald Trump on some fronts, he's got a lot of legal obstacles to navigate here.
Anything you want to add to that, Daniel?
Well, you know, I've always thought that Donald Trump would find a way to raise this money, but the longer it takes, the more controversial the funding is likely to be. So the question is, does he start raising money from foreign governments, for example, or sovereign wealth funds, and can he do that legally? And what does that mean if he does become president and then is beholden to these countries and sovereign wealth funds for that? And so it's, you know, we're just going to have to see how it plays out, but it's certainly none of this is normal.
Yeah. As we all know, there have been many, many times in Donald Trump's business career that he's borrowed money and borrowed money and borrowed money against borrowed money, and always seemed to come out on top. Never mind all the bankruptcies that he filed, but he was always able to find whatever money that he needed. Now, at this stage of his career, he has been spurned, we are told by his lawyers, by 30 different companies as he seeks this $454 million judgment. The bond for that he needs to post a week from today. And so this disclosure, 1 week out, makes it abundantly clear, as they say, that raising this money, and I quote from them once again, is a practical impossibility. And so Daniel Kleidman has raised all the appropriate questions. What is the, Daniel and Michael, I should say, what does the judge say? How's the judge going to respond? Can Donald Trump raise this money? Where will he raise this money? But it seems to me that now more than ever, he faces a severe uphill battle. He faces a financial crisis, the likes of which he's never faced, even as he runs for president as the presumptive Republican nominee. We'll get to this book, Find Me the Votes, a hard-charging Georgia prosecutor, a rogue president, and the plot to steal an American election with the authors Michael Isikoff and Daniel Kleiman when we come forward on Tavis Smiley.
From Leimert Park with love, this is Tavis Smiley.
Hey y'all, Mona Swain here from Target's new YouTube series, My Cart is Full, where we feature Black founders and creators highlighting their connection to our community. As an actor and content creator, I love using my voice to inspire young Black women who look like me. When it comes to feeding my shine, seeing myself reflected in Black-owned and founded products at Target brings me joy. Together, we are Black Beyond Measure. Learn more at target.com/Black Beyond Measure.
Cookie wants to be a professional wrestler.
I'm Cookie Serratos and I'm 11 years old.
She also wants to win all the medals. That's why Cookie and her family make every day count, squeezing out her best with Go-Go Squeeze.
Okay, Cookie, let's break for a Go-Go Squeeze.
Go-Go Squeeze Fruit on the Go pouches are a nutritious snack made from 100% fruit with no sugar added.
Go, Cookie!
Because when you nurture your kids, you squeeze out the best in them. Squeeze out the best with Go-Go Squeeze. Not a low-calorie food. Products range from 11 to 13 grams of sugar and 60 to 70 calories per serving.
Substance use disorder and addiction is so isolating. And so, as a Black woman in recovery, hope must be loud. It grows louder when you ask for help and you're vulnerable. It is the thread that lets you know that no matter what happens, you will be okay.
When we learn the power of hope, recovery is possible. Find out how at startwithhope.com. Brought to you by the National Council for Mental Wellbeing, Shatterproof, and the Ad Council.
Hey there, Los Angeles. This is James Lucky Jr., publisher and editor of Los Angeles News Observer. Are you hungry for news that matters to you in the African-American communities of Los Angeles? Well, buckle up, because we got the scoop you've been craving. Stay in the know and never miss a beat with our free weekly publications conveniently available near you. Or hop on the digital wave and become an exclusive subscriber at OGNSC.com. Don't forget to join the party on Instagram and Twitter at OGNSCINC for behind-the-scenes access and sizzling updates. No more FOMO. Let's stay informed, connected, and empowered together.
Pizza's here.
Oh, great. I'd love some, but I'm worried about my stomach issues.
If you're worried about having diarrhea, gas, bloating, stomach pain, or loose, oily stools, it may not just be stomach issues. It could be a condition called exocrine pancreatic insufficiency, or EPI. With EPI, the pancreas doesn't release enough enzymes to break down food, but EPI is manageable. Use the symptom checker on identifyepi.com and talk to your doctor. That's identifyepi.com. Sponsored by AbbVie.
Getting quality employees to fill positions in your company is essential, but finding those people can be a major hassle unless you use ZipRecruiter. ZipRecruiter makes finding quality people a breeze. ZipRecruiter's advanced technology identifies candidates with the right skills, sends you great matches, then you can easily invite them to apply. 4 out of 5 employers who post on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. See for yourself. Go to ZipRecruiter.com/free to try ZipRecruiter for free. That's ZipRecruiter.com/free.
Ready to re-examine your assumptions and expand your inventory of ideas? More of Tavis Smiley coming your way right now.
More of Tavis Smiley and Michael Isikoff and Daniel Kleiman coming your way right now. The book is called Find Me the Votes, a hard-charging Georgia prosecutor, a rogue president, and the plot to steal an American election. I started this conversation minutes ago by suggesting that I should ask Michael and Daniel what lottery numbers I should play this week, because the timing of this book, as I said, could not be more propitious. Daniel, what do you make of the timing of this book, given specifically what happened in this case on Friday? That is to say, the judge allowing Fani Willis to continue her prosecution so long as Nathan Wade stepped aside, which he did.
Well, it is giving the book a longer shelf life, which is great because we want as many people as possible to read the book, the whole story. We've all been focused on the sort of soap opera, legal soap opera and drama involving Fani Willis and Nathan Wade, but this is the time when I think the story should be shifting back to the underlying conspiracy to steal an election in Georgia. And what we say in the book was that this was the most anti-democratic plot in American history in a lot of ways, and it was the focal point for more alleged criminality than in any of the other cases against Donald Trump. And it's important, I use the word conspiracy. It's important to acknowledge that this isn't just a case against Donald Trump. This is a case against, now it's 15, but it was 19 people who took part in this alleged criminal enterprise to deprive people of their vote, essentially, to steal an election. And it's a very important case, and in some ways it's the case that we thought all along was the most threatening to Donald Trump. And one last point before I know Michael wants to jump in. The story is deeply human. The human dimension, the toll on average Georgians, whether it's poll workers like Ruby Freeman and her daughter Shay Moss, or office holders, who were the victims of the most horrific threats of violence, of sexual violence, not just them, but their families as well. And that is something that is a real threat to democracy, because people are not going to want to participate if those are the consequences of participating in our democracy.
Daniel, before I pull Michael in, let me just do a quick follow-up here. Your phrase not lost on me in reference to this being the most anti-democratic plot in American history. As you were talking, my mind started running through all the anti-democratic plots in this country's history that I could think of. When you call it the most anti-democratic plot, you got to unpack that one for me. I think you may be right, but unpack it for me.
Well, in a very strict sense, this was, and not just Georgia, but the effort to overturn the 2020 election more broadly was really the only time in our history where the peaceful transfer of power, which is something that we have always taken as a given in this country, was actually threatened. And without the peaceful transfer of power, we don't have a democracy. So in that sense, we do think it was the most anti-democratic plot that we've ever really experienced.
Yep. Before I shift Michael Liskoff back to the real big steal that Daniel teed up a moment ago, let me just ask you, because he uses the phrase deeply human. This is a very deeply human story, and I was sort of taken aback reading the book by the time you all spent with Fani Willis. So there are all kinds of fellow citizens now, Michael, who have all kinds of views of Fani Willis. At one point, she was absolutely beloved and completely respected in the black community for bringing this case against Donald Trump. It takes a lot of chutzpah, pardon the phrase. I could have thought of something blacker. But anyway, it takes a lot of fortitude as a black woman, and black women are full of fortitude, to bring a case like this against a former president. She has made more progress in getting convictions than the white guy Jack Smith, frankly, has done in Washington, D.C. Not to make race an issue, but my point is this is a black woman, which cannot be lost on this audience, bringing these charges against Donald Trump. Not easy to do. You and Daniel spent a lot of time with her, and again, everybody has opinions of her now. Many of us, frankly, disappointed in her lapse of judgment. There's no doubt about that, it seems to me. And yet, I want to know more about her. Before I get back to the case, the big steal, tell me, Michael, more about Fani Willis and what you learned spending time with her.
She is an absolutely fascinating character. I mean, and filled with contradictions. A woman of enormous talent, and obviously also flaws as well that go with it. Just a little basics. First of all, her heritage. She comes from her father, who you saw testify during those hearings, was the formative figure in her life, raised her on his own. A guy who spent a lot of time in Los Angeles. In fact, he's from L.A. Was a radical in his younger days. Started out as a civil rights activist, but became a Black Panther. In fact, he founded the Black Panther Party of Los Angeles. in the late 1960s, along with somebody who was his lover for a while, Angela Davis, a pretty prominent character on her own. He evolved from his black nationalist roots in the 60s, became a lawyer in Washington, and raised Fonnie Willis. And she went to Howard Emory Law School, started out as a young prosecutor in the Fulton County DA's office, and she became the star litigator in that office. Starting out doing homicide, she was an extremely talented, effective lawyer in the courtroom. In fact, she was so successful, they used to tell young DAs who were starting out in that office, you want to know how to do a homicide trial, go watch Fonnie Willis do it. She is the master. And we recount some of her successes. But her big case, the case that put her on the map, was a RICO case against Atlanta public school teachers and administrators for cheating, doctoring the test scores of kids in the Atlanta public school system. This was enormously controversial, by the way, because almost all of the defendants in that case were African Americans, and she was selected by Paul Howard, who was then the DA, to be the chief litigator on the case. But she won it. And that sort of cemented her reputation as the sort of master litigator in that office. And then she took on Paul Howard, who had been there for years, won in a race that was quite interesting because she was the tough on crime candidate in that race. In fact, she was endorsed by the police union. And that became controversial as well. We talk about the sort of fascinating encounter she had with T.I., the rap star, who wanted her to renounce the police, the contributions she was getting from the police union, and a buckhead Republican anti-crime activist. And she refused to do it. She said, they're part of my community as much as everybody else, and I'm going to stick with them, which is kind of ironic because, the Trump people have gone after her as some sort of radical Marxist. In fact, she was, some in Trump world praised her defeat of Paul Howard and said, finally, we're going to get somebody who's going to do something, crack down on what was then spiraling violent crime in Atlanta. So she's a very interesting character, not somebody... She doesn't fit any particular mold. She's not the progressive prosecutors that have been elected in L.A., Philadelphia, and San Francisco, a lot of other cities. She's very different from that. But she is one time. Look, the first chapter we have on her, the title is Badass, and that tells you something about who she is.
No, you make a strong distinction. She's no Chesa Boudin, who eventually got recalled in San Francisco. She's no George Gascon here in L.A., not even an Alvin Bragg in New York City. So you're right. She's not in that mold of these black and not black, progressive DAs who are being elected across the country. When you have a face-off with T.I., a face-off with black people prosecuting black teachers, et cetera, et cetera. You're right. She's not conventional. She doesn't fit in a box. Take that for what you will. Let me just ask you, Daniel, given what happened on Friday, before I get back to this effort to steal an American election in your book, detailed quite nicely, were you, I asked you to speak for Michael, Michael can speak for himself. Were you guys surprised, Daniel? were you guys surprised at what the judge ruled on Friday? Many of us thought that this case, lapse in judgment notwithstanding, it really wasn't a case. Should never have been brought. There was no evidence that they lost any opportunity to make their case because of this relationship. But nonetheless, the judge decided to take it up. He ruled on Friday. Were you surprised by the ruling, Daniel?
I was not surprised by the ruling. In fact, I had sort of been predicting that Judge McAfee would find an artful way to ensure that Nathan Wade would step aside from the case and that way Fonnie Willis and the rest of the office could stay. I thought that was the sort of going to be the Solomonic judgment here, and that's what happened. I was a little bit surprised at the harshness of Judge McAfee's tone toward Fonnie Willis, talking about her, her terrible lapse of judgment, talking about this phrase that, has been quoted a lot, that there was a sort of an odor of mendacity that hung over this case, and suggesting, hinting at least, that she and Nathan Wade had not been truthful in their testimony. That's just a pretty serious charge to level at a sitting district attorney. Suggesting the possibility of perjury. Yeah. You sort of wonder, if you don't find it, if you don't find that as a matter of the factual record, then should you really be saying or suggesting that she did lie? Yeah. And I think, he was walking a fine line here. I think he probably felt, remember, these judges in Fulton County are run for office. He is running for his first election, the primary in May. And he's a Republican. He was appointed by Governor Kemp, who's a Republican. And so I think there's a sense in which he was kind of trying to cover himself on both sides.
When I heard him in his ruling, and certainly when I got a chance to even read it and spend more time noodling it and wrestling with it, when I saw that line of him, his essentially calling her a liar, I thought of the one line in the special prosecutor's report about Joe Biden and his memory, and what a difference, Daniel, one line can make. And my sense is that just as she beat Mr. Howard, there's going to be a whole lot of folk running against Fonnie T. Willis in her next election. Most of them will be black, certainly in Atlanta, and they're going to use that line in campaigns. They're going to use that line.
Tavis, I think you're right about that. Interestingly, it actually reminded me, and this is quite similar, of what Jim Comey did.
Yes,
when
Hillary.
When on the Hillary emails, where he said he wasn't going to bring any charges, that there wasn't a justification to bring criminal charges, but then he really slammed her. And the question is that the role of a prosecutor? Normally, if you're not going to bring charges, you're just silent. And I think that would be the case for a judge as well. So it was a little bit surprising.
Yep. I've got 2 minutes to.
Michael. Can I add to that,
yes, please,
Tavis? Because I wanted to just, what was so striking about the shot he took there, odor of mendacity was the phrase he used. Because if you read the rest of the opinion, it pretty much demolishes every claim of wrongdoing that the Trump defendant lawyers had brought. I mean, the essence of their motion was that the conflict of interest here was because, she was having this relationship with Nathan Wade and he was being paid by the taxpayers of Fulton County. They had a vested interest in prolonging the case so Wade could make more money and then take Fonnie Willis on more vacations, and therefore, they wanted to drag out this case. And the judge, concluded that there was absolutely no evidence of this. In fact, he points out that she was trying to move the case forward, scheduling a relatively early trial date, and it was the Trump defendant lawyers that were resisting, waiving their right to a speedy trial. But for me, the most important line here in McAfee's opinion, the one that should be the takeaway, is where he says there has not been a showing that the defendant's due process rights have been violated, or that the issues involved prejudice the defendants in any way.
And yet,
bottom line, this had no impact on the case at all. It didn't harm the defendants. It didn't deprive them of any rights. And in that sense, I think, one takeaway from that is, well, if that's the case, why did we spend 2 months on this
salacious inquiry into their sex lives.
It's a powerful question. I got two other questions I want to ask about that when we come forward. I got two things I have to ask before we move forward and get back into this book. Well, we're already in the book. It's called Find Me the Votes, a hard-charging Georgia prosecutor, a rogue president, and the plot to steal an American election. Michael Listikoff and Daniel Kleibman are the authors, and I'm delighted to have them right now on Tavis Smiley.
Unapologetically progressive. Unapologetically black. You're tapped into Tavis Smiley.
Paid for by government.com. Did you know the United States Mint has issued a new Morgan silver dollar coin in proof condition for the first time? Not only that, they are also minted in 99.9% pure silver for the first time ever in history. Coin experts are calling this an amazing opportunity for anyone that knows the enduring popularity of Morgans. But you must hurry. Only 400,000 of these legal tender silver dollars were issued. These first ever Morgan silver dollars are brand new with stunning mirror-like finish, minted by the iconic San Francisco Mint. Call now and you're guaranteed a new first ever 99.9% pure silver proof Morgan dollar. To learn more, call 1-800-973-9717. If you order now, you will receive a free coin collector bonus pack, a $25 value, free with every order. Call 1-800-973-9717 now to secure your new Morgan silver dollars before they are gone. That's 1-800-973-9717.
I'm Mike Moore. Here's the latest from the Black Information Network. The Biden administration's legal case over social media moderation is being heard at the Supreme Court. The justices are hearing arguments today over whether federal officials violated the First Amendment when they urged platforms to remove false or misleading posts. The case stems from attempts by the administration to curb COVID misinformation. The 55th annual NAACP Image Awards ceremony took place Saturday night in Los Angeles, California, hosted by Queen Latifah. The color purple was the big winner of the evening. It was named Best Motion Picture and in total took home 11 NAACP Image Awards. Fantasia Barrino took home the award for the Best Actress. And that's the latest. I'm Mike Moore from your 24/7 news source, the Black Information Network and BINnews.com.
Compassion sponsorship means food, healthcare, education, and more for a child in poverty. And there are thousands of kids who've been waiting over a year and their wait. Sponsor a child with compassion today. Text the word radio to 83393.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
Congratulations to the USC women's basketball team. USC is one of 4 number 1 seeds in the NCAA women's tournament. The Trojans, number 1 in Region 3, are a top seed for the first time since 1986. Their first round matchup is Friday at home against Texas A&M Corpus Christi. UCLA's women's team is the number 2 seed in Region 2. The Bruins open up at home Friday against California Baptist. 2 HBCU schools are in the women's tournament: MEAC champion Norfolk State and SWAC champion Jackson State. Norfolk State plays Stanford. Jackson State takes on UConn. There are also 2 HBCU schools in the NCAA men's tournament. MEAC champion Howard will play Wagner in a play-in game Tuesday in Dayton, Ohio. Grambling is in the NCAA tournament for the first time in school history. The SWAC champs face Montana State on Wednesday. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
Linking social justice and climate justice all year long. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We heard you. You're hard at work when Tavis Smiley is on the air mid-morning, so we're giving you twice the Tavis. You can now tune in to Tavis Smiley weekdays at 9 a.m. or 9 p.m. only on KBLA Talk 1580.
Robert Half research indicates 9 out of 10 hiring managers are having difficulty hiring. Robert Half is here to help. Their recruiting professionals use proprietary AI to connect businesses with highly skilled talent. At Robert Half, they know talent. Visit roberthalf.com today.
Planning for spring at Lowe's means big savings on outdoor power equipment, and Lowe's knows nothing feels better than free. Buy one select Ego string trimmer, leaf blower, or mower kit. Get one select 56-volt battery free. That's up to a $299 value. Power through spring with Ego, the #1 rated brand in cordless outdoor power. Because Lowe's knows home improvement. Valid through 4/3 while supplies last. Selection varies by location.
We've got a lot to talk about.
Hi, I'm Ray Richardson, your sports connection here at KBLA Talk 1580. Join me and my co-host Neil Scarborough every Saturday night at 7 for Out of Bounds, the show that brings some flavor to the world of sports for 60 minutes. We take you beyond the scores and press conferences. We give you our point of view, the way black folks see what's going down. You can join the conversation and give us your analysis at 1-800-920-1580. Out of Bounds every Saturday night at 7 on KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black.
You like your style, though.
Don't shave with that, son. You'll get razor bumps.
Nah, Pops. I'm good with Gillette's Skin Guard. How long you been growing that beard anyway? You know Mama hates it.
Yeah, had it since my last wet shave in 77. Got ingrown so bad, looked like I was growing a patch of new noses.
That's why I use the Gillette Skin Guard razor, face scrub, shave gel, and moisturize, so I don't have to worry about new razor bumps or shaving irritation.
Gillette Skin Guard, huh? Your mama's gonna love this one.
Taco Bell just added the cheesy double beef burrito to their new Cravings value menu, where all 10 choices are $3 or less, which means you can get the beefy cheesy burrito you want for the price you want. It's almost like you can have your cake and eat it too. But in this case, it's a burrito. So basically, you can have your cheesy double beef burrito and eat it too, which is nothing like cake, but you get the idea. The cheesy double beef burrito is here. Get your worth at Taco Bell today. At participating U.S. Taco Bell locations while supplies last. Contact stores for price and participation which vary. Double the seasoned beef as compared to the Burrito Supreme. Tax extra.
Who do you trust to get at the truth? Tavis Smiley. That's who. The conversation continues right now.
It does indeed with Daniel Isikoff and Daniel Kleidman. Michael Isikoff. Did I say Daniel? Michael Isikoff and Daniel Kleidman, authors of the book "Find Me the Votes: A Hard-Charging Georgia Prosecutor, a Rogue President, and the Plot to Steal an American Election" is the book. Everybody's talking about it. It is out now. The timing, as I said earlier, couldn't be better. And I'm delighted to have Michael and Daniel on the program. So, Michael, I didn't cut you off, but we're up against the clock a moment ago, and I wanted to ask a quick follow-up before I move forward here. And over the weekend, I was appearing at a number of events, and sort of did my own informal poll of black women who I ran into this weekend. And they kind of fell into two categories. I am not a black woman. Clearly, you are not a black woman. But I want to just share with you what share with you.
Confirm that. Yes.
Thank you for the confirmation. Trust but verify. Reagan said, right? Trust but verify. I was talking to a bunch of black women this weekend at various places, at various events, and they kind of fell into two categories when it comes to Fani Willis. One is they were disappointed, embarrassed by her lapse of judgment, gave black women a black eye. I heard that in a number of instances, and I also heard women on the other side who were staunchly behind her and really respected the fact as a black woman she did not back down. She did not let Trump and company run her away. So there are these two schools of thought that I heard. Certainly there are other opinions I heard, but those two primary schools of thought I heard talking specifically to black women over the weekend. I say all that to ask, Michael, based on what you told us earlier about what you learned about Fani Willis, tell me more about why, when she could have recused herself and saved herself from all this embarrassment, all this humiliation, she refused to.
Look, had she recused herself, it is most likely the entire office would have been recused as well, because they all report to her. And that would have effectively ended this case. The idea that another Georgia district attorney's office was going to take up this case with no background in the evidence, not having engaged in the whole grand jury process, with no prosecutors who were familiar with the details, that was going to happen any time in the foreseeable future. It just wasn't. And so, she brought this case. She knows the evidence. She's the RICO expert in Georgia. She brought the biggest RICO case, as we discussed before, in the state's history.
And so she was key to making this happen. And were she forced to step aside on her own, then holding Donald Trump accountable and also holding all his alleged co-conspirators accountable for what they did in Georgia, it just would not have happened.
Yep.
So,
Tavis, can I add to that, Tavis?
Sure. Sure.
Let me add to that, because I think Mike's exactly right about the sort of legal and kind of policy reason that she did not recuse herself. But I also think there's a very personal reason she didn't, which is that she's not constitutionally able to. She is a fighter. And she is someone who, and this is interesting. This goes back to what Mike was saying about her father raising her. I mean, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. When he was organizing, doing civil rights organizing in the Jim Crow South in the 60s, he pretty quickly realized that Martin Luther King's approach, nonviolent approach, was not the right approach for him. The idea that there's one story in our book where he's walking down the street with one of his fellow civil rights workers, and there's a white man walking from the other direction, and his civil rights worker friend steps aside so that the white man can keep walking on the sidewalk. And John Floyd, the father, thought that was a kind of pathetic acquiescence to the racial order of the time, and he developed a kind of a deep-seated loathing of bullies, and Fani Willis inherited that, and you saw that in the courtroom when she testified. She wasn't going to be bullied by the defense lawyer. She wasn't going to be bullied off of this case, and she came in there and she testified, and for good or for ill, she was combative and she was herself. That's Fani Willis, and she is not going to change who she is. Some people will love that. Some people won't.
Yep. Michael, tell me why I should not believe, and this is, of course, the epicenter, the essence of this text, Find Me the Votes, the book by Michael Isikoff and Daniel Kleiban, our guest right now, on Tavis Smiley. Tell me why I should not believe that this phrase, Find Me the Votes, isn't just a throwaway. I mean, you got a tough race. You got people counting, finding votes. I'm sitting in L.A. right now. This program is nationally syndicated. We're heard across the country, but I'm based in L.A., and we still have elections right now. Tuesday, 2 weeks ago, was the election, and they're still counting votes. And so someone could say, okay, find me the votes. I need to win this thing. That doesn't necessarily mean that you're encouraging somebody to engage in criminal activity, but tell me why I should not believe, because I ain't stupid, that when Donald Trump said find me the votes, he meant a great deal more than that.
The short answer is you got to read the book. Because as we lay out, Trump's comments were on that phone call to Brad Raffensperger, from which we got the title, didn't come in isolation. There was a 2.5 month effort from the get-go to overturn the results of the election in Georgia and other battleground states. Although in Georgia it was the most intense, it was the most furious. It was the crime scene that ultimately led to January 6th, and it included, this barrage of wild, evidence-free conspiracy theories that they were throwing out, all to create, confusion and doubt about the election, the idea that Venezuelan socialists had implanted secret algorithms in the voting machines of Dominion to flip votes from Joe Biden to votes from Trump to Biden. It was all nonsense. It was all absurd. It was debunked repeatedly. And then you put on top of that, the completely outrageous charges that Rudy Giuliani and other Trump people made before the Georgia legislature, targeting Ruby Freeman and her daughter Shay Moss, these two African-American election workers, accusing them of all sorts of fraud and illegality. Again, all debunked, all nonsense, all designed to just create doubts. And it ultimately, then there was the efforts to convene a special session of the state legislature to overturn the results of the election. There was the efforts to go to the Supreme Court to get them to overturn the election. And it culminates in Georgia with that phone call, the notorious phone call. And when you read through what was actually said in that phone call, it is so classic Trump because he's throwing out all these ridiculous charges and these conspiracy theories. They're being rebutted by Raffensperger. He threatens Raffensperger with criminal prosecution if he doesn't find the votes. And remember, the most telling line is, find me 11,780. Just one more than we need. Yeah. That's all you got to do. Just find those votes, one more than we need to flip Georgia's electoral votes. And you put it all together and you see this as Fani Willis laid out in that indictment, a racketeering conspiracy.
Nope, I receive it. Just wanted to ask that for those who will get a chance to get the book and read it in greater detail. But this notion that this was just a throwaway phrase, find me the votes. No. It was not a throwaway phrase, and Michael Isikoff tells you a great deal more why it was not. When we come forward, Michael and Daniel, I do want to ask, I want to go straight to Daniel when we come forward with this, and it's a bit philosophical, but it's obviously rooted in the politics of the moment. And I was thinking about this last night, Daniel. There was a time in this country where all of these conspiracy theories were the property of the folk on the left. And somewhere along the way, this thing flipped. And it's the right now, the political right in this country, who engages in these conspiracy theories all the time. I'm just curious as to how that happened. I don't know if you've thought about that, you and Michael, in writing this book. But it's the right now that is the party of all these conspiracy theories, when that ain't the way it used to be. Let's talk about that part when we come forward on Tavis Smiley.
This is getting good.
Yeah, man.
Tavis Smiley continues when we come forward.
What is dedication?
My biggest fear in the middle of my addiction was that my kids wouldn't have a father. And I started thinking, you know what? This isn't my story. I definitely had to become a better man to be a better father. It's important to me that my kids are empowered and truly believe that if they can think it, they can do it.
That's dedication. Visit fatherhood.gov to hear more. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
Joey from Vermont, a farmer trying to get through the winter. Adriana from South Carolina, a single mother living paycheck to paycheck. Liam from Ohio, an injured father struggling to provide for his family. Hi, I'm Shanola Hampton, and I support the Feeding America network of food banks because they help provide over 6 billion meals to people in need each year. Learn more at feedingamerica.org.
eBay Motors is here for the ride. 120,000 miles of night drives, daily commutes, and who knows how many.
Are we there yet?
Through countless fixes, elbow grease, and a new radiator, you kept your ride alive. With eBay Motors, you have over 122 million parts to keep it running. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, they'll be the perfect fit every time. Plus, at these prices, well, we're burning rubber, not cash. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply.
Sometimes we lose, sometimes we win. Sometimes we try to fit it all in. Sometimes we don't know what's in store. Sometimes we find what we're looking for. Sometimes we're rolling easy and free. Sometimes 1 and 1 makes 3. So much to love along this ride. That's why Nationwide is on your side.
Nationwide Mutual Insurance Company and Affiliates, Columbus, Ohio.
Psst. Hey, I have a secret. I use Secret Whole Body Deodorant because more than just my armpits stink.
Oh, can I use it where my bra rubs under my...
Oh, yeah.
And what about down there? You know, my...
Totally. 4 out of 5 gynecologists would recommend it. So I tried it, and now I get 72 hours of freshness from my pits to my...
Ooh, I love that it's a spray.
Me too. And it comes in sticks and creams, too. Go get your Secret Whole Body Deodorant.
If you're looking for the most epic place on Earth, let's start at the base of a massive waterfall. Then trek through the thick jungle. Then climb to the peak of a snowy mountaintop. Then once you get there, keep going. Because with intelligent 4x4 and 7 drive modes and a Nissan Pathfinder, the search is the real adventure.
Available feature. Intelligent 4x4 cannot prevent collisions or provide enhanced traction in all conditions. Always monitor traffic and weather conditions.
Smart talk for curious people just like you. You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
Daniel Kleidman, tell me how, to your mind at least, the GOP, the Republicans, became this consortium of conspiracy, because all that's laid out in the text.
Well, look, it's a profound question. I imagine that there's been a significant amount of research looking at the reasons that conspiracy theories seem to have flourished a lot more on the right than on the left in recent years. You know, we should point out that there were right-wing conspiracy theorists going way back, and if you look to, for example, the period around the time that John F. Kennedy was assassinated,
sure.
There was a lot of that going on. When I really started to notice it was, probably in the second Obama term. You had a Democratic president and the first black president for 8 years, and for a lot of people on the right, that was a scary thing to a lot of people, and it made them feel a sense of paranoia. I think, and then look, conservatives have tended to be less trustful of our political system and government for a long time, and a lot of this starts with anti-government sentiment. So think about the militia movement, for example, and I think a lot of it grows out of that. Liberals tend to be much more in favor of government and traditional institutions. So, these are only some of the reasons I think that this phenomenon exists, but I think it bears a lot more scrutiny and study.
Well, very quickly, if I can add to that, let's remember that Donald Trump is the premier conspiracy theorist in American politics. I mean, the whole birther stuff, remember when he was pushing that during Obama's years? So it's really not a surprise that he and his followers would fuel these conspiracy theories. But, just getting back to the book for a moment, the chapter in the book that probably has gotten the most attention, Chapter 6, the QAnon Commission, is a role that the crazy QAnon conspiracy cult played in fueling the Trump efforts to steal the election is much more than most people understood. And in fact, Lynn Wood, conspiracy nut, total QAnon guy, throws open his plantation in South Carolina, Motley, where they all gather, and zooming in in this plot to develop these conspiracy theories is this guy, Ron Watkins from Japan, who was the administrator of the QAnon website. He was probably the guy most responsible for promoting QAnon, and he played a key role in working with the Trump people.
Any book written by Michael Isikoff and Daniel Kleidman, you can trust and believe is going to be well researched, but that chapter required some work, and I was actually quite impressed. Not that they did hear me say that, but I was quite impressed with the research on that chapter alone. The book is called Find Me the Votes, Our Remaining Moments with Michael Isikoff and Daniel Kleidman, when we come forward on Tavis Smiley.
More of Tavis Smiley when we come forward.
If you're like me, 60 and retired, making ends meet, especially here at the supermarket and drugstore, is tough. I'm so blessed to have found benefitscheckup.org. It's a free and confidential website from the National Council on Aging that connected me to $1,200 a year in programs that help pay for food, medicine, utilities, and more. Maybe it can help you. benefitscheckup.org.
My daughter was diagnosed with a rare malignant rhabdoid tumor on the spine. They sent her straight to St. Jude. My hope was gone. But when you get there, everyone's like, hey, we're not going to give up. And when you see other people not giving up on your child, that makes all the difference in the world. When I found out I didn't have to pay, I was just grateful. They saved my baby's life.
Finding cures, saving children. Learn more at stjude.org.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA reminds you that when we fight, we win, and we don't black down. LA Community Action Network, or LA CAN, was formed in 1999 when 25 residents of downtown LA came together and acknowledged the problems that existed in their community and made a commitment to do something about those problems, to stand together, organize, and become a force in the community that demands change. Civil rights and preventing the criminalization of poverty are their core projects. In addition, they take on women's rights, the human right to housing, and healthy food access. LA CAN also has projects focused on economic development, civic participation, voter engagement, and community media. While downtown LA remains their home base, with a particular emphasis on the Skid Row community, in 2007 they expanded their housing and healthy food access work into South Central Los Angeles. LA CAN believes that power for low-income people and people of color is achieved through a large, active, and well-informed member base that utilizes a multitude of methods to advance their messages and goals. If you'd like to join the Los Angeles Community Action Network and organize people to fight back against oppression, please visit cangress.org. That's cangress.org. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
If you love to travel, Capital One has a rewards credit card that's perfect for you. With Venture X, earn unlimited double miles on everything you buy and turn everyday purchases into extraordinary trips. Plus, receive premium travel benefits like access to over 1,300 airport lounges where you just check in and chill out. Open up a world of possibilities with Capital One. What's in your wallet?
Terms apply. Lounge access is subject to change. See CapitalOne.com for details.
Let's get back to more of Tavis Smiley right now.
How would you define this book? I've got about 3 minutes left here. You first, Daniel Kleiban. How would you define this book in terms of it being a wake-up call for the demos?
I'm sorry, a wake-up call for the...
For the demos, for the democracy, for the country.
Yeah. Well, we are about to go through an election with almost certainly the exact same two candidates that we had in 2020. And so, the possibility of a replay or at least a partial replay of what happened in 2020 is real. Yeah. And I think everybody would do well to read this book, Find Me the Votes, and anything they can get on their hands on about the threat to democracy and the kinds of ways that the system can be manipulated to understand what could happen again. This is not exactly a guide. Yeah. A guide to how to prevent the next overturning of an American election, but you certainly can learn a lot about how Donald Trump tried to do it.
I'll give the last 90 seconds to you, Michael. Let me say this first, though, to Daniel's point. The thing that's scary about this book for me, the scariest part, is not even the great work you all did here, but when you read what happened here and you consider on top of that all that Republicans have done in states across this country, getting ready for a close race this time around, having all the right elected officials in place to do what they want done, it's even scarier. Last word to you, Michael Isikoff.
Yeah, I'll end on a little different note, which is a slender reason for hope. If you read the book, what was really one of the things that was really striking to us is for all the intense efforts, furious efforts that Trump and his people were making to overturn the election. Yeah. When he asked folks in power to cross a line and commit fraud, they all refused. And that goes for all the Republican office holders in Georgia, from Brian Kemp, the governor, to the attorney general, Chris Carr, to Raffensperger himself. They were supporters of Trump, but when he pushed them to go too far and do something that was unethical and potentially illegal, they refused. Yeah. And one can hope that may carry forward in this year's election as well.
Yeah, I am not optimistic in that regard, but I am hopeful. Michael Isikoff, that you're right about that, and they are not the same thing as you are.
Quickly, we're going to be, for your LA people, we're going to be out in LA for the LA Times Book Fair on April 21st. So if your local folks want to come in, please do.
April 21st, the LA Times Book Festival. It's a good one, and Michael and Daniel will be appearing there to talk about it and sign copies of their book. It's called Find Me the Votes, a hard-charging Georgia prosecutor, a rogue president, and the plot to steal an American election. Great work, Michael. Great work, Daniel. Good to have you both on the program. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Tavis.
All the best to both of you. Father Michael Flager, when we come forward on Tavis Smiley.